I want to welcome the panelists. I'm just really intrigued by what's happening. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected production and has led to the collapse of the brick and mortar sales. We've seen fashion shows and events such as pop-up shows, designer productions, festivals postponed or even canceled, affecting sales and heavily disrupting the fashion industry globally, and of course, particularly hitting Africa hard. This has forced designers to scramble for an online presence and to build their brands online. For the purposes of this panel, we want to focus on the opportunities and strengths for Africa fashion, as the world likes to focus on the negatives surrounding Africa, not the positive. While in the West, as I've said, and I've borrowed this from other people, digital is an innovation, and Africa is the beginning, and it's leveling the playing field for Africa. I would like to welcome the panelists. There's Kibonen Mfi, the creative director of the Kibonen brands, as well as the CEO of the Cameroon clothing line. We also have Kanye Mashimbye, who is the consultant for the Afrexim Bank Intra-Africa Trade Initiative. And we have Roberta Annan, who's a co-founder and managing partner of the Impact Fund for African Creatives, as well as Regina. We have Regina Jane Gier, who is the editor-in-chief, as well as she's as well as the managing partner for the New African Women's magazine. And so I would like to welcome you panelists. I'm looking forward to an amazing panel. We don't have much time. We have about 30 minutes to share our thoughts, but I believe this is just a precursor to great things for fashion in Africa. We are going to focus on the scaling of African fashion. And I would like to start with you introducing yourselves briefly. Give a 1-minute introduction of yourself. I'll start with Kibonen. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations to the Africa Summit team. I am Kibonen Mfi. I am the creative director for Kibonen Brands, and I am the CEO of Cameroon Clothing Company. Thank you.
And I move it over to Roberta. We've lost Roberta. What about Kanye? Kanye, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Wusi. Thank you so much for this opportunity and congratulations on an amazing event. My name is Kanye Mashimbye. I am from South Africa. I currently am the consultant for Afrexim Bank, focused on the creative and cultural industries within the Intra-Africa Trade Initiative. And my background is in fashion retail buying for almost 2 decades there, and also having co-founded a footwear manufacturing business that is based in South Africa, in Durban. Thank you. I look forward to the discussions.
Awesome. Welcome, Roberta. Roberta, please introduce yourself in about a minute.
Sorry, I don't know what I clicked on. My name is Roberta Annan. I'm dialing in from Accra, Ghana. I'm the founder of African Fashion Foundation, a nonprofit organization that has been around for a decade, nurturing raw talent in the African fashion industry, and also the managing partner and founder of the newly launched Impact Fund for African Creatives, which is an investment platform that is investing not only the entire gamut of creativity. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for Africa Future Summit for putting this platform together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Roberta, for those remarks. Regina, welcome. You're on mute. Could you please introduce yourself in 1 minute? You're muted. Okay. Please try going at the bottom of your screen. Can you see it? I think Regina is having. So anyway, we'll move forward, and then we can always come back to Regina. Um, Kibonen, I'd like to pose this question to you. You've launched the Cameroon clothing company in your home country, Cameroon, which uses fashion to empower designers. How do independent designers in the marginalized markets, such as across the continent of Africa, gain a foothold in global markets?
Thank you, Busi, for that question. Actually, the reason behind us setting up Cameroon Clothing Company was really because our designers, myself included, found it really hard to get production going. Because if you know how it works in Africa, it's mostly people just going to tailors and having them make what they need. But when that is done, you realize there is no uniformity, there is no consistency. And for me, it was a very personal project because I did not want to get my production done in any other place besides on the continent. So pulling back a little bit on my brand to be able to focus on getting a certain kind of production done, not completely managed by me, but getting professionals to manage it was what I needed to do, such that once I get back into production, I am competitive and I can produce at a certain number. Cameroonian designers have also suffered a lot, and it's not just Cameroon, it's Africa for the most part. And us being able to help them produce in a way that it's global, it's competitive, the finishing is right, the grading is right. Just that aspect of the production was what was really particular for me. And so far, it's going. It's slow because we still need a lot of professionalism or professionals to help us, but we are walking along that path, and we will soon be there.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Regina, you're back on. We're so happy to have you. Please introduce yourself in 1 minute. And also, I have a question for you. You covered Africa fashion for decades and brought Africa fashion to the world via your platforms, the New African magazine, as well as currently the New African Woman as editor and managing director. How do you feel about the evolution of Africa fashion these past 15 years, and what are what trends are you observing? Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and apologies, I had a hitch there in the beginning. I think you've already introduced me. I'm the editor of the New African Woman magazine, which has been running for the past, I think, 13 years now. Coming to the question, because I'm aware of the time, I'll be as brief as I can. I think African fashion should be everywhere. That's my view for as we evolve. I mean, it has been evolving. And when you come to the question of trends, let me first handle the question of trend. I think that question for me, I always have a little bit of a fickle of how to describe trend. Trends come and pass. And I think the talent, as you have heard from Kibonen, the talent in Africa is so immense that we need to move from just being a trend and take advantage of what is there. So it has evolved quite a lot in the past 15 years, as you have stated. But what has been the benefit to the designers, such as Kibonen, as you have heard, has speak on the hurdles that they face. And I think it's a question of putting in more political will, and the mantra that I get from most of the designers that we have worked with in the past few years is that there's just no no support that actually trickles down to scale up the industry. And I think that's where the crux of the matter is how do we scale up the industry, apart from just having, this season's trend is, bell bottoms, this season's trend. So I think we need to move the conversation beyond the aesthetic of the fashion as we see them on the catwalks, the fashion weeks, to how it trickles down to benefiting not just the designers, just as the continent as a whole. And I think this is where, the CFTA and is now coming in to probably look into those things. And I think we have a panelist who is going to talk about that. And so there's some layers that are coming in now that are being put in place. And I really look forward to what is going to come out of the IATF in Durban this year. And also, I think the governments and just the private sector and institutions such as Afrexim Bank, I think they're all coming in now to see how we can scale up the fashion industry, the creative industry in Africa beyond catwalks, fashion weeks, and so on. And we need to educate the designers through platforms such as ours, the New African Woman, and other publications that are Pan-African and with a global appeal on the advantages that these platforms, such as the CFTA, and I think we've got PAPs coming up on how you can trade, within internally in Africa, and how that can benefit the creative industry, including the African fashion designers. I can go on, and but I'm aware of the time limitations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Regina, for that insight. And that leads me into Kanye. Kanye, you happen to be in an interesting role. You've been a footwear designer, and also you're creative, and you're currently the consultant at the Afrexim Bank regarding intra-African trade initiatives, where you deal with creatives. And I would like to see that piece, the moving piece from where you stand as a creative designer, as well as the financing part of things. We usually hear of phantom funds, whereby people feel that's ways of funding. But what do you think designers need to get to that place, to get the right funding? Because we know Africans are clearly very innovative, very hardworking, very resourceful. It's just a matter of tightening these nuts and bolts.
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Wusi. Indeed, I am in a very interesting position in the sense that my background is a creative background, but I spent almost 2 decades in the business of fashion as a fashion retail buyer. And therefore, I sit also on the side of the offtake, not only just the supply of the demand of the product. And just to take it back to your question about being at a Frexim Bank and what we're trying to do within the Intra-African Trade Initiative. The bank has acknowledged and recognizes that the creative and cultural industries play a fundamental role in transforming societies purely, firstly and foremost. Oh, I'm so sorry, my phone. Firstly, from a social cohesion perspective and growth, but also from an economic transformation perspective. And the creative and cultural industries, by their nature, tend to benefit the most disenfranchised groups like youth and women. And therefore, the bank has committed to the creative and cultural industries within the continent and has created a fund which is there to support and to help build these industries and actually scale them and to create interventions that are there to support, because giving access to finance is one thing. Money is not always the solution. Sometimes you need other factors like skills development, like infrastructure development, transacting, making the ease of transacting better. I think, Regina, you mentioned that there's a lack of political will to support the creative sectors. And the bank also has recognized that and also plays an advocacy role. So we also interact a lot with the African Union. We interact with a lot of other bodies that have a vested interest in these industries, this including the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, in building policies and communicating with different governments and bodies to make sure that we define the vision of where we want to take or how we want to approach the industrialization of these sectors. So Afrexim Bank has got a specific program which is focused on supporting the creative and cultural industries. This includes music, film, fashion. It's a very broad spectrum. Uh, and the name of the program is called the Creative Africa Nexus. And the work of the Creative Africa Nexus is not necessarily to give access to the financing, but it is to create supportive interventions that ready businesses to be able to get the financing that they require. Generally, the creative and cultural industries tend to be fragmented, they tend to be informal, and therefore banks don't necessarily take them seriously, and they're very hard to lend to. And the bank recognizes this and wants to play that interventionist role to say, as a bank, we want to help you, but we know we can't help you as you are. These are the different levels of interventions, and these are the things we're going to do to help you push you over the line so that you are bankable. So we're looking at mentorship programs, incubation programs, accelerator programs, small and medium enterprise support, and products that give access to finance to those enterprises. We're looking at providing access to markets for businesses. We're looking at basically creating opportunities and spaces where businesses can partner, collaborate, and network with other interested parties. An example of that type of intervention is the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, where we will have a Creative Africa Nexus program that seeks to connect the creatives with investors, connect the creatives with potential buyers, potential clients, and therefore and also collaboration amongst creatives, because one of the things that recognizes that there's an information asymmetry. Someone could be sitting in Kenya looking for a particular raw material that's sitting in Cote d'Ivoire, and there is no repository of that sort of information where we can all go to one place, and let's call it a digital African market, where you can say, if I'm looking for cotton, if I'm looking for this type of raw material, Cote d'Ivoire specializes in this type of fabrication. If I'm looking for more hair, South Africa specializes in this type of knit, and therefore I can source it from here. So we're trying to build these bridges and break down the barriers that are quite imaginary, because they were imposed on us, and therefore the bank takes it very seriously, the job of breaking down these barriers. And the most sharpest tool we have at this moment is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which will bring down these colonial barriers to their knees, basically. But it is our duty to take up the mantle and to take charge, because this is something that has been bequeathed to us by those who came before us, who conceptualized this. Now it's our turn to take on the baton and run with it.
Fantastic. Thanks for your input and sharing that insight, Kanye. And I believe Roberta stands in a very would provide some solutions that maybe banks, bigger institutions might not be able to provide the small organizations or companies. And so I would like to introduce, bring back Roberta and ask her, as the managing partner of the Impact Fund for Africa Creatives, that's what solutions do you provide support fashion designers as they scale? Also, what steps do you think fashion entrepreneurs should follow to finding funds such as yours or any financial institutions? Thanks, Roberta.
Thank you so much. And I've learned so much about what others are doing on this. Has been quite informative for me as well, just to know what platforms like AfriExim are doing in the creative sector. So thank you again for the questions. I'll take it in two steps. The first step is, what are we doing? So for the past 10 years, we had African Fashion Foundation. And African Fashion Foundation, you can look at it more as initially, before IFAC, was a blend of incubation and acceleration. And the work that we've done there was to focus on education and capacity building and grants. So for the past 10 years, we've deployed $1.7 million of our own funds. We've never raised a dime from external partners. It's been our money. And these funds have gone into supporting creatives with grants for production, with fellowship programs. So we've taken creatives from the continent, fashion designers, into major fashion capitals and provided them with housing and a stipend and educational opportunities so they can learn under established brands. And the minimum is about 6 months to about a year. So our fellowships last us 6 months to a year. We've had scholarship programs that also gives the African fashion designer an educational, opportunity to go and be educated in a different market. And then we've supported with grants for production because again, access to capital is important, is very difficult. And a lot of fashion designers don't even, like you're saying, very informal in the way they operate and have, it's quite fragmented. We haven't found a way to glue the pieces of the fragmented nature of the creative economy yet. So a lot of designers, because of the informal nature, the lack of protection of the IP, don't even have a way, because you when you have IP, you can commercialize. Without IP, how do you even go to a bank? What sorts of collaterals do you have to even, get funding from a bank? So this is where we stepped in to help piece the fragmented nature together and to build the initial infrastructure that would allow creators then to have some kind of, I'll say, gravitas, as a business. And so this is where we stepped in for 10 years to create those pieces and incubate designers. And a lot of the top designers that you're hearing in Paris, opening Fashion Week and whatnot, have been part of our incubation process and gone through our acceleration process. And now that we have an established investment platform, we're now, because we can see the potential for growth, the potential for scale, and we can see a return on investment. But 8 years ago, or 10 years ago when we started, we couldn't see that. But the potential was there. The creativity existed, right? But you could not see the ROI. And I've used my own resources to create a proof of concept because it was very difficult to convince. I work in the area of resource mobilization with the United Nations. I work with a lot of the wealthiest families in the world. And going to them to invest in a creative venture was just, it was not a topic of interest to them because they did not see the ROI. They believed they were just throwing the money away if they were going to invest with a creative, or they would rather buy the pieces or the art but not really invest in the sector. So it was a challenge. So I needed to put my own resources to create a proof of concept. And that's so important, to understand that we're not just talking, we're actually doing the work and we're making a great impact. So 10 years down the line, we decided to set this platform because we realized that we needed to now go out and raise external funds. We could not do it with our own funds anymore. First of all, I don't have the resources to solve a lot of the problems that we have with creators. I can't do it alone. So I'm happy to see that the likes of AfriExim are in the game and coming in with the funding because you needed to raise external funds to tackle the problem. I look at the creative economy from a socioeconomic context. I feel creative economy is a way to get a lot of young people employed. We have a very young population in Africa, 65% under the age of 25. So if we're talking about job creation, we're talking about youth unemployment. We have to tackle the issue of, using creating more businesses out of the creative economy. It's also a way to look at gender parity issues. So if we're trying to get a lot of women economically empowered, we do have an opportunity to use the creative economy as a tool. And then the third factor is we're all talking about cultural heritage and protecting what we have as Africans. Why should our, I'll say native or heritage or cultural kind of identity be taken by other markets and then sold back to us as Africans? This is why we need to step up as Africans to see, because we have so much that is happening here in the creative that is appropriated by other markets. I love what my sister's doing in Cameroon. Looking at what she has locally to really establish and pool and aggregate different, businesses together to produce on the continent. This is what we need to do, right? So there's so many pieces to the puzzle. We can't do it all. But for us, our long-term, goal as a fund is to ensure that we have partners in different markets who really are doing that, and we want to amplify their work. We want to support their work. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to really amplify those players in the different markets. Our aim is to combine what we've already done at AFF. So the AFF has now become the incubation point. And at incubation, you need a different amount of money. So you need more grants because you're going from ideation to prototype. So you need grants, you need technical assistance, you need that kind of soft support, right? Then acceleration. The next step for us is acceleration. You need more money in acceleration because you have an IP that you want to protect and you want to create like a business infrastructure around your business. And you need different kind of funding for that. So our aim is from incubation to acceleration, understand what amount of money creatives need and to be able to provide that. And then the third stage is actually where you do the equity, because this is you, and you need to look at different businesses, right? So from incubation to acceleration to the fund, you have to be we have a team that are managing each aspect. So currently we have 4 businesses in incubation, we have 5 businesses in our acceleration, and we have 3 businesses in where we've actually put equity investment into. And every stage has a team that actually looks and assesses what the businesses need, how much funding they need, and also protecting and guiding the funds that we give them to ensure that is utilized properly and that can actually give a return on investment. Because if I'm going to open up to investors to invest with me through my platform, then I have a fiduciary duty over their money to ensure that when it's invested, I can make a return on investment and give them back their money plus an upside. So it changes the dynamics, and you need a different skill set, which we've been able to put together in 3 years. And we're really excited about what the future holds, really, because we've seen so many projects that have been presented to us, and I really wish that we had the funding to be able to capture all. But we're doing the very best that we can to tackle, the problem in our own way. Thank you.
Yes, I know Christine is here to prompt us that we're running out of time. I'd like to thank you all for participating, but what I would like to do right now is to give your closing remarks and include what the scaling of Africa fashion means to you and what opportunity lies there. In less than a minute, please wrap up and share that.
Thank you, Busi. We're going to make it really snappy. For me, my biggest thing is how we can develop fashion on this continent, because I've realized that a lot of us are so dependent on foreign markets, and we have the CFTA, which is there to kind of help us in that. So I am really pro finding local solutions. Everybody is trying to get into Nordstrom, to Macy's, everybody cannot be there. How about we develop our own Macy's, our own Nordstroms, our own Saks, so that we can just produce and get them there? That's just how my mind is working right now. And I wish, together with what Roberta is doing, and Afrexim Bank, we can really be able to set up such structures on the ground. Thank you.
Fantastic. Roberta, can you follow in Kibonel?
She said everything, but I'd love to just add that, African solutions for African problems, like she's saying, let us find our own solutions. We also have to find a way to work together and not work in silos, right? Thank you.
Right.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for that. And Regina, you're muted. Oh, Kanye, could you jump in, and then Regina will come back when her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What else? Should I continue? Yeah.
Yes, you may.
Roberta and Kibonin have just mentioned, I think we need to look within Africa for solutions, our own solutions. I mean, there's always this mantra of African solutions, by Africans, and I think that mantra needs to be put into effect. And also, I think designers need to know how to market themselves, the type of designs that are coming out of Africa, in as much as we want to demystify what African fashion is, but they also have to be relatable. They have to be, we can't all be kind of like, or be playing second fiddle to Rick Owens, for example. If a designer like Rick Owens, that is not relatable to the African fashion aesthetic. So it's all these things that we need to look within, and we need also stop playing second fiddle to what other countries are doing abroad. And we can collaborate, but we cannot play second fiddle.
Kanye, thank you so much, Regina. Kanye, your remarks.
Oh, they've said it all. I don't even know what more to add, but I would say for me, the biggest thing is about understanding that there is power in unified approaches where we're not working in fragmented sections or silos. There is power in platforms like this where we start having the necessary conversations, but it shouldn't end there. This should not be the end in itself. It should actually be part of the process, a start of unifying African voices, of unifying the African vision, and actually approaching our solutions in a unified manner. And that will enable us to build an understanding of that market that Regina is talking about, that you need to understand who you're selling to. You can't understand who you're selling to if you're not talking to them. If you want to make, for instance, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area work, you want to be able to have a successful trading partners within the continent. Yes, we need access to markets like the US and Europe and so forth, but as all these amazing panelists have pointed out, we need to look within first. And therefore, for me, it is about first and foremost having a unified approach to
Thank you
solving.
so much. Thank you so much. I mean, we have taken solutions by us, but we can also borrow a few things from others. But we have to take a unified approach. And I've heard there's a proverb that actually I was saying, if you don't wear the most ideas in the graveyard because you're not sharing ideas, you have to basically share. So I'm Busi Matsiko again, the executive director of the Africa Future Summit and global strategist at Pond Global. I would like to thank you, amazing panelists, for your insight and sharing about how to scale Africa's fashion and in a global market. And I would like to thank our sponsors. Thank you again, and have a wonderful of the summit. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.